Excitement. Apparent. Chapter 5. Max. I'm so glad to see you've made it here safely, despite the excitement. Apparently you didn't receive our letters at sea. Sit, eat, you must be hungry. Zarith stood at the head of the table and gestured down its length. Overflowing platters of food were artfully arranged down the center. Chicken and fish, rice and breads, diced fruits with wet, crimson meat glistening beneath the candlelight. The table could have easily seated 30, but the 5 of us were clustered at one end. Near the other, Ter, Cessary's Vultan advisor, sat with his eyes downcast. And at the head, Zarith stood and smiled at us with easy charm. Zarith! Zarith was there, in the same spot my father used to sit, in the main dining room of my family home. Zarith Aldrus, wearing a crown on his head. I was so furious I could barely speak. "Why are we here?" I demanded, but my words were sliced in two by the sound of splitting air. 3 silver blurs whizzed past my ear, so fast I felt my hair rustle. "You snake!" Nehra spat. In a split second, Zarith was leaning against the table, rubbing his neck and peering over his shoulder at the 3 throwing knives now embedded in the wallpaper behind him. Beside me, Nehra stood rigid, her eyes icy with rage. "Welcome back, my dearest second," Zarith said sweetly. "You have no shame, as opposed to—" "Who, you? Who didn't wait 30 seconds before your first assassination attempt? She missed on purpose. I wished she hadn't. Words still escape me. That was rare." "You have many things to explain, Zarith," Tisana said, quietly but with a deadly edge to her voice. And Zarith straightened as he smiled at us. "I do indeed. Sit down, and we'll talk. Sit down." Funny how out of everything those 2 words were the thing that made a bitter laugh slip between my teeth. Zarith's smile turned to ice. "Is something amusing?" Zarith Aldrus just invited me for dinner in my own ascended damned childhood home, with a crown perched on his head. Amusing is not the term I'd use. I didn't realize I was leaning forward until I felt my palms pressed against the mahogany of the table. Beneath my left thumb, I could feel a scratch in the surface. Barry Ashlis had made that mark some 15 years ago, when scratching away at 2 thin parchment with the nib of his pen. And now, Zarith is sitting there, telling me to sit down. "Where is Cessary?" Samarin asked. "Why are we here?" I added. Because still, despite everything, it was the one question I kept coming back to. But I wasn't quite expecting the sheer lack of hesitation, the utter nonchalance, as Zarith said, "Queen Cessary is dead." He took a bite of steak, chewed loudly. "Eat! Don't make all of this go to waste!" We all sat there in stunned silence. Every set of eyes looked to Ter, who seemed to sink into his chair, staring down at his empty plate, expressionless. "Horseback riding accident," Zarith added. "It was horrible." "Accident," Samarin repeated, dryly. Zarith cocked an eyebrow, then put down his fork and continued. "Cessary placed a great deal of trust in the orders. Ter, after all, was her most trusted advisor." Zarith gestured to the Vultane beside him, though Ter's gaze remained dutifully lowered. Obviously, Cessary had no heirs and likely would not for a very long time, considering her age, so, prior to her death, she enacted a decree entrusting the crown to the Archcommandant as regent in the event of her death. Thus, Zarith reached into his breast pocket and produced a sheet of folded-up parchment paper. He smoothed it out on the table, then slid it towards us. I craned my neck to read it. "By decree of Queen Cessary, first of her name, she of no successor, I hereby declare that in the untimely event of my death..." I skimmed through the rest, several paragraphs of winding verbiage, until I got to the end, the important part. "Crown shall pass to the Archcommandant of the Order of Midnight and the Order of Daybreak, as one who is most committed to Ara and most qualified for the role," and there, beneath it, was Cessary's signature. But of course, without looking up, I could hear the smug, sarcastic smile in Zarith's voice. "None of this is a surprise to my dear second. She didn't fill you in, The realization fell over me like a cold shadow. All this for what? For a 13-year-old's throne? I'd asked that to Nehra merely weeks ago when we were traveling to Threll. Now it all clicked together. They, Zarith and Nehra, had been using Cessary, using her to replace lords with ones more favorable to their cause, using her to make herself so horrifically unpopular that any alternative would be welcomed with open arms. Nehra wasn't flinging knives at Zarith because he'd stolen a crown. She was flinging knives at him because he did it without her. My head snapped up. Tisana was giving Nehra a piercing stare, but Nehra's eyes still looked at nothing but Zarith, any reaction hidden beneath layers of ice. "You still haven't answered," I ground out. "Why are we as—" "If you'd have some patience, Maxentarius, you would hear me explain that we are here because there is still a great deal of work to do. Is no one going to eat?" "No?" He let out a sigh and stood, then grabbed a rolled-up piece of parchment from the sideboard behind him, pushed his place setting aside with a dramatic flourish, and unrolled the fabric down the table. It was a map of Ara. Red paint marked various cities across it, and the largest red circle of all was around the capital. "As you all have seen," Zarith said, "Cessary declared the Arch-Commandant, me, to be the rightful heir to the crown in the event of her death. But, as one might expect, many of Cesary's cousins are not especially eager to accept the truth of the matter, particularly Atric Aviness. I came north shortly after the announcement to solidify my position with the Rivenai nobles and gather loyal troops." His gaze flicked to me. "We all know that Corvius, of course, is the military center of the north. Your Aunt Lysara was all too willing to host the new king, especially once she learned that you're an ally." "Lysara," I repeated. "Of fucking course. I wouldn't put it past my miserable aunt to host Zarith." Still, there was a certain— was it disappointment? For a second, there had just been a part of me that was wondering, "Surely you didn't think Brayan had invited me?" Zarith said. "No, it was a ridiculous thought. He wouldn't have done that." Zarith's nose wrinkled. "No, he wouldn't. As far as I knew, my elder brother had been gone from Ara for the better part of 10 years, all too eager to leave the estate in the care of our aunt and go wander Besrith. Not that I could blame him. Anyway," Zarith cleared his throat, voice growing sour, "I admit it was a mistake to leave the palace so soon. I underestimated the loyalty some in the capital would have towards the royal bloodline. Aviness's forces took control of the palace while I was gone, merely a stumbling block, of course, given our superior resources." His gaze fell to Tisana, and I ground my teeth. She stared back at him with a cold glare. "You knew what would meet us at the Mikov estate," she said quietly. "You had fought with Azin Mikov. You knew he was angry at the orders. You knew that party invitation was a trap, and you told us none of it. Were you hoping that some of us would not make it back alive? Or was it just something to keep us busy while you came to Ara to steal a crown?" I took the invitation at face value. Besides, I had great faith in your abilities. Rightfully, it seems. I heard some incredible tales of what happened that night. His eyes flicked to me. "Very interesting things, actually. And after all that," Tisana said, "you expect us to go take the capital and give you your stolen throne?" I could practically see the gears turning in her head. "I object to that description," Zarith said, brushing the crown on his brow. It seemed to sit oddly on his head, like he wasn't fully comfortable wearing it. "But yes, of course we are to put down the rebels challenging the rightful line of succession." "Rebels?" Nehra snorted. "You make it sound like we're talking about a bunch of ragged militiamen. Atric Aviness has one of the best armies in Ara, perhaps even the world, and I see at least 5 other old blood houses on that map of yours." She was right. Some of the most oldest, most powerful districts in ARA were among those marked in red. It was no surprise to me that these would be the families to object most strongly to Zarith's reign. For some, the loss of a royal bloodline meant the loss of their own claim to power. But even beyond that, many would oppose on principle alone. Zarith had gained great power within the orders, yes, but he had come from nothing. For Aran nobility, a throne held by a nameless bastard would be seen as a threat to their very way of life. "If you're suggesting that we take the capital back now," I said, then we're looking at a bloodbath. No matter how much power we have, I did not miss the pleasure in Zarith's stare on Tisana. Or on me. And how would you do it? I was pointedly silent. I had an answer, of course, but I wasn't about to. Advise Zarith Aldrus on the best way to conquer Ara. Nehra spoke instead. If the capital is held by Avenus's army alone, then maybe you'd have a chance at taking it back easily. But that would mean taking, at the very least, the Grudo, Lishan, Varnil, and Archerath families out of his ally pool. She gestured to 5 cities on the map. They have strong armies and deeper connections within the old blood. Without them, Avenus's forces fall apart. Zarith nodded. I think so too. And so, that will be our approach. Tisana will help me topple Varnil and Archerath from power, and you, Max, will take Grido, Lishan, and a few other of these little strongholds to the west. Tisana and I exchanged a quick glance. Absolutely not, I said. If you gain these people as your allies, Tisana said, you will be. Stronger than if you simply conquer them. You absorb their strength, instead of destroying it. I could tell that even Tisana understood what she was suggesting was unrealistic. But I knew Ara's upper class well enough to know that it was more than unrealistic. It was outright lunacy. These families, they would sacrifice their own lives and thousands of their soldiers before they would bend the knee to someone like Zarith. He gave us a look that said he knew it too. An ugly realization settled over me. After everything, this was what it was all for. The Order's manipulations, Tisana's blood pact. This was the war she would fight, the servitude he would demand. She would kill in Zarith's name, and I wasn't about to leave her side. Not for a minute. I'm here to keep Riche under control, I said. That's all. I'm not about to tramp across the damn country collecting lordships for you. Let's drop the pretenses. Everyone in this room knows why you're here. And it's not because of Riche. He leaned forward, his smirk fading into something sharper, a look that made my blood boil. I'm not too prideful to say that you're a great fighter, Maxentarius, and a phenomenal wielder. Any army would be honored to have you on their front, mine included. But... His lip curled. If you step a single hair out of line, if you undermine me, if you so much as look at me in a way I disapprove of, I will make these next 5 years the worst ones of Tisana's life. And I do know the scale of all that implies. Considering her past. Beside me, I heard Tisana let out a slow breath through her teeth. My fury ran so hot, it scalded the insides of my veins. And for a moment, I genuinely considered the possibility of killing him. Right here, right now. I could take him. And was there anyone in this room who would stop me? Zarith's gaze sparkled. In that particular way that I'd come to learn meant he knew exactly what I was thinking. There's one more thing I'd like to show you. He reached down and unbuttoned the wrist of his jacket, then wrenched the sleeve up to his elbow. There, on his forearm, was a tattoo. I did not recognize the design, similar to a stratogram, but more twisted and chaotic, the lines twining through the circle's center and growing so dense that individual shapes were indistinguishable. Circling its edge were tiny, jagged figures that looked as if they could be words, though not in any language I'd ever seen before. The black ink bled angry, mottled purple into Zarith's albino skin. Nice, I said flatly. Very pretty, Zarith. Looks infected, though. This isn't just a tattoo, he said. It's a spell. It combined my blood and Tisana's, and it binds her life to mine. If I die, so does she. My heart stopped beating. My gaze shot to Tisana, just long enough to see her eyes go wide. Impossible, I barked. Zarith smiled as he rolled down his sleeve. Nothing is impossible, Max. The people in this room should know that better than anyone by now. Impossible, a part of me still insisted. The part of me that wanted so desperately to be right. It can't be done. Impossible. Tisana moved so silently I didn't realize that she had stepped forward until she was leaning past me, pressing her palms on the table as she stretched towards Zarith. Her face was utterly calm, and yet her eyes were so bright, like something inside of her had lit on fire. I signed your pact, she said, her voice quiet and sharp. I will fight. Your war. I have no choice in this. But know that I've defeated more powerful men than you, Zarith, and in the end their desire for power only made that easier. It's nothing personal, Zarith said. I'm realistic about the risks I face. I'm protecting myself. Don't pretend any of you would be doing anything different if you stood in my place. I wouldn't, and that's why I would never stand where he stood. His fingers brushed the crown absent-mindedly, and a flicker of thoughtful uncertainty crossed his face. But then that smile was back, easy and careless. Do you know what power is? He said, leaning back in his chair. Power is sitting here alone, in a room with 4 people who want to kill me, and knowing I'll walk out alive